That's right. Keep it right there on AroundBayRadio.com. Don't you dare touch that mouse. Get your hands off of it. Welcome aboard Starship Nibiru, chat room 786. I'm your host, Brother HAMZA Sid Catlett Bay, and we welcome you on board Starship Nibiru in our voyage to assist in the process of raising consciousness.
HAMZA Sid Catlett Bay, born April 8th, 1948. Birth name Sidney Leon Catlett. Father, famed drummer Sidney Catlett, a.k.a. Big Sid.
Fellas, one of the biggest names and also one of the biggest frames in drums is that of Big Sidney Catlett. He's here to say a couple of words to you on V-Disc, so come on in, Big Sidney.
Hey, hello, fellas. I'm going to beat these stubs out for you, and I truly hope you enjoyed it.
By the numbers, the birth name Sidney Leon Catlett equals to the number 5. 5 is a number that deals with power, change, heart. 7. 7 was the key in HAMZA'S life. The true mysteries, truth seeker, depths of information that stretches into the galaxies, attuned to the cosmos and nature, sound vibrations. HAMZA'S life path, again using his birthday, April 8th, 1948, equals the number 34, which breaks down to the number 7. Thus, he found comfort in the knowledge of the Circle 7. In basketball, in his early years, HAMZA made his name. DeMatha Catholic High School in Hyattsville, Maryland is where he played. In high school, he wore the number 34, i.e. 7. College, he wore the number 43, i.e. 7. His famed game was on January 30th, 1965, against Powell Memorial Academy out of New York City. The star of that team was a young fellow by the name of Lou Alcindor, a.k.a. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. January 30th, 1965 equals the number 7. HAMZA was 16 years old at the time of the game. Again, 1 and 6, 7. In a 46-43 win for DeMatha, HAMZA scored 7 of the team's last 9 points. Again, 7 was a life path for him. As a basketball player, he stood 6'8". May even measure him at 6'9". He was muscular, strong, had a soft jump shot, and in the victory over Powell Memorial, Sid scored 13 points. Powell Memorial superstar, again Lou Alcindor, scored 16 points. Sid played every minute of the game without taking a break. While in practice at DeMatha High and preparing for the game against Powell Memorial, Catlett used a tennis racket in practice to simulate Lou Alcindor's height on defense. DeMatha's victory over Powell Memorial is the only blemish on Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's high school career.
Tonight, our interest is our youth. And for all of us who are sensitive and intend to try to have our finger on the pulse of society with respect to where we're going in this society, our children, of course, at this point in time, we believe need very much acute attention.
So the man, HAMZA Sid Catlett Bay, captivating, inspiring, activist, lobbyist, champion, defender, nobility, a giant of a man, a lion of a man. He is HAMZA Sid Catlett Bay.
Now we're going to move to Brother HAMZA Catlett Bay, who are going to give us the secrets of the cat family. Are you there?
Yes, I am, sister.
Thank
Peace and
you so
blessings.
much
Islam, Morris.
Islam.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank the presenters that I've heard the last three, I think, for their excellent presentation, very comprehensive and concise and to the point. And so I thank you, brothers and sisters, for your participation. As the sister shared with you, my name is Brother Hamza Sid CATLETT Bey, born and raised in Washington, D.C., now in the Atlanta metro area. And the brother's right about the tree, the point he made about the trees down here in the Atlanta area. Overdevelopment is causing, I believe, a serious problem. Obviously, the primary lakes in the Atlanta metro area, Lake Allatoona, Lake Lanier, are drying up, and there is a water crisis. As a matter of fact, there's a serious argument now between the tri-state area of Tennessee, Georgia, and I think Alabama with respect to who has the rights, the water rights to the Lanier Lake, which feeds all three of those states. And so there's some concerns because there was a judgment, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks ago that Georgia didn't have rights to it. And so they're scammering now, trying to come up with a strategy to, offset that judgment. So a lot of things are occurring because of the mistreatment of the earth that we were given stewardship to maintain. So I appreciate everybody's presentation, and I thank you all. Just a little background on myself. Like I say, born and raised in Washington, D.C., executive director of a ministry called Moorish Americans United for Righteousness World Ministry. Have done a lot of research over the years and have heard a lot of discussions with respect to our Moorish lineage and Moorish heritage and the significance of understanding that nationality, that identity. Been around for a long time. I was the ambassador for the WASHITAW, assigned and appointed by the Empress's son, Joe Washington. I attended the Indigenous Peoples Conference in Geneva, Switzerland in 2004, the last one that the WASHITAW attended. So I've been around a little while and done some things. I host a radio show, internet radio show on Harambe Radio. I don't know how many of you all are familiar with Harambe. If you're not, you should be. For the call letters, and I would recommend this very quickly. I would recommend that with respect to the types of things that you're going to hear this evening, I would recommend that beyond your listening capabilities, which all of you all have great listening capabilities, and I know that even though I don't know you, because you've come to this realization of who you are. You've listened, you've heard your heart, you've heard other people who spoke the truth, and you use your discerning capabilities to discern those things that you thought were important to you versus those things that were not, to come to this realization of who you are today. So I know that you do have listening capabilities, and I respect that. And Harambe Radio, I believe, is one of those internet radio networks that should be listened to. There's a broad spectrum of subject matters founded. The station was founded and now being operated by a brother by the name of Delani Amon, who hails from Washington, D.C. It's a great radio station network, and the call letters for the website is simply Harambe, H-A-R-A-M-B-E-E, radio. One word, HarambeRadio.com. My particular show is called Chat Room 786, and it comes on every fourth Thursday in the month. If there are 5 weekends or 5 Thursdays, in that month, we come on the third Thursday as well as the fourth Thursday. And also used to be a radio host for an internet radio network called Galactic7Radio.com. They will be back up and running within the next couple of months. Another great in-depth radio network that I'd recommend highly. So enough about my background. If there are any questions later on, certainly I'll be willing to entertain any questions you may have, so feel free. But I do recommend that you jot some of these things down, because some of these things may be foreign to you, and also I'll give some source materials to substantiate my claims. That's the thing I think that's very important in terms of how we approach research. And the approach to research, in my view, is similar to the approach that one must take in law. If one makes a claim in law, one is responsible to verify that claim. And so if you make claims with respect to research, you must verify that claim that you make. It's the responsibility of the claimant to either verify or substantiate those claims that we make. So I will provide some source materials to assist in the process of fully understanding the points I'm attempt to make. I want to thank Brother for inviting me on. He and I go back some years back in Washington, D.C., and he was one of those folks who attended workshops that we used to have on a weekly basis, going back to the late 70s on into the early 2000s. So I thank Brother for remembering and reaching out and touching base and giving me a call and asking me to come on. And the primary thing he wanted me to discuss is essentially centered around the meaning of the word more. Now, I have a base position with respect to those of us who've come to that realization, which is that is primarily the first step of a process that is worthy of additional steps, meaning that realization and coming to the acceptance and the embracing of that word is the first step. However, when you do ask folks the question, what does the word mean? Then this is where it gets cloudy. And this is where we believe that we've been blessed to come to be able to not only come to that realization, but be able to substantiate it. And here's the problem, I believe, or here's the challenge. Let me put it that way. Here's the challenge. One of the primary things you need to research, I believe, is what is called an etymological dictionary. Etymological dictionary. And that is spelled simply ETYMOLOGICAL. Etymological dictionary. Now, the reason that's important to have, along with your standard basic dictionary, and there's some other things I'll recommend later on, but primarily with respect to words. We're speaking a language that's not our own. We're speaking a language that's been imposed upon us. And we're speaking a language that has, again, been built upon other traditional languages as well as Indo-European languages, and they have changed in spelling and in some respects changed in meaning as time and language has gone on. And when you look in any dictionary, etymological dictionary as well, for the word more, my question has always been, well, if you take the position that being a Moor means that you are associated and connected from a DNA, from a nationality standpoint, to the original man/woman, then there you're making a claim. That's when the responsibility comes in to verify that claim. And my question becomes, how do you identify the word more beyond the Indo-European and Romantic languages? How do you identify the word more once you get into cuneiform? How do you identify the word more once you get into pictograph? How do you identify it? And so this became a challenge. And what we found out simply is you're able to find out those connections and those linkages. You're able to do that once you come to the realization of what the word means. Once you come to the realization of the meaning of the word more, then you're able to substantiate your claim of being the original human being or original man or woman by being able to make the assessment of the meaning of the word and be able to connect it irrespective of whether or not it's pictograph, cuneiform, script writing, or whatever. But what I would like to do is start, for example, I'll start with the Greek language. Let's just start there for the sake of the discussion. When you look at the spelling of the word more in the Greek language, it is spelled M-A-U-R. And what has happened is, what is being maintained throughout the various spellings, M-A-U-R, M-U-U-R, M-O-O-R, M-O-O-R, any set of vowels in an aura will give you the word more. Now, the base consonants of the word is M and R. And those are the primary two letters that are necessary to bring about this word. And what has happened is, for example, they have maintained the M and the R, knowing that those are the base consonants that are required to write the word more. Then what they did was simply they maintained the M and the R, and they gave us the term Mr., or the script expression of the word Mr., which is MR period. And that was associated with those in society, certainly prior to our freedom, socially, politically, and otherwise. Prior to that, one of social esteem, or one who was worthy of respect, was given the term, or the term was assigned to that or associated with that person as Mr. Essentially, all they did was take the two base consonants for the word more, which is M and R, and utilize it as that expression that gives respect to an individual, be it male, and Mrs. MRS for those women who are married and certainly of that statue of status and respect. But M and R are the two base consonants for the word. Now, what the Greeks did, most of us know, in most things relative to archaeology, science, or whatever, the Stolen Legacy certainly expresses that, has expressed that very well. That book has been out for years, and that's a worthy book to recommend for those of you unfamiliar with it, called Stolen Legacy. That most of what the Greeks garnered, they garnered from the so-called Egyptians. Now, I try not to use the word Egyptians, but I do it in certain instances where perhaps folks are unfamiliar with the word that is also expressed that relates to that particular landmass, which, of course, is Kemet. Now, what the Greeks did was essentially took from the Kemetic language the word for cat, which is M-A-U. There are varying words for cat in the Kemetic language. One is M-A-U, one is S-H-U, shoe. And we'll get into that as that word shoe relates to the word Yahshua. But they took the word Mao, M-A-U, and in the ancient Hebraic language, the aura, to complete the word more, because it's spelled M-A-U-R, the aura in the ancient Hebraic language, keeping in mind that Hebrew letters have definition. They have meaning. Aleph, for example, is the first letter. We use the single A. Aleph means ox. B, we use the single letter B in our expression or in script writing. Beth is the second letter in the Hebrew language, which means house. For example, many of you all have churches in your area called Bethel or House of El. Beth El, House of El. The third letter, Gimel, G-I-M-E-L. That word means camel, and so forth and so on. The letter R in the Hebrew language, the letter R is spelled Resh, R-E-S-H, or R-I-S-H. Now, Resh, or the Ara, gave the last connect to the word more, M-A-U-R, and the R means, in the Hebrew language, head. So when you combine the M-A-U, Mao, in the Kemetic language, and the R, the word more, meant cat head. Now, if you go back into the ancient Kemetic language, and let me just quickly cite this for example. Most people know, of course, the landmass that we're talking about, so-called Egypt, popularly or properly called Kemet, is a place name. Now, but let me ask, for the sake of anybody out there, what were the people called? The land was called Kemet, but what were the people called? Anybody?
Canaanites.
Another in it? Another? Because that suffix ending nites, N-I-T-E-S, I would suspect that. I'm sorry.
Were they Nubian? Nubian. Was it Nubian? Was that kind of a dumb answer? Nubian?
No, there is no dumb answer because we're all here trying to share, and so there is no dumb answer. The people were called Kamau. The people were called Kamau.
Wow.
Khamau. So we know Cam, Kham, or Cham. There was no C back at that time. So Kham, Cam means black, and Mao means cat. So the people refer to themselves as Black Cat. Now, whenever a place name was created by the ancient ancestors, it took on feminine connotation because it's the motherland. It provided all the necessities, as Brother spoke about, with respect to nourishment, nutrition, and all those things. The earth provided, Mother Earth provided all those things necessary. So a feminine connotation was applied to the place name Kemet. How was that done? Well, whenever you see a T in the Kemetic language, the T always denoted femininity. And so the T at the end of Kemet just makes the word Kemet feminine. Kim, Kham or Khem, Et is the feminine form of Black Cat. And the people were called Kamau. Now, so the Greeks created the term Maur, M-A-U-R, as it has graduated, so to speak, into modern-day New English, which we speak. It is now expressed in varying forms, still maintaining the two base consonants, M and R. Okay? Now, let me just say that there are various ways by which the language has been manipulated and coded. And one of the things that you'll hear me talk about is words such as transliteration. How do you transliterate a word? Well, basically, because the vowel system in other languages is not the same as the vowel system that we use, to bring a word to its Hebraic base, you must remove the vowels and do an assessment of the consonants, because we didn't use that vowel system that was being used at the time. For example, here's another example. Brother Strong Rivers on his website brought this out, and I saw this some years ago, and it helps substantiate our claim with respect to the word and what it means. He broke down the word Catholic, C-A-T-H-O-L-I-C, Catholic. Now, the prefix of Catholic, of course, is cat. And the next four letters is holy, H-O-L-I. So this is their way of coding the holy cat. And they have taken it and essentially assigned it for themselves, because they fully understand the meaning of the word more. They know. And you know, too. And they've showed you for years, brothers and sisters. How often have you seen a commercial with respect to a cat food, and there's a primary animal with a particular name that's been used for years, and all of you know him? Come on, what's the cat's name? Morris.
Morris the cat.
It wasn't Ted, Steve, Earl, or Joe. It was Morris the cat, because they know that the word more means cat head. And they have given it to us for years, knowing that we don't know. So the Catholics, with respect to the same thing, they have taken that, the history of that, and assigned it for themselves. And it's no accident, because, look, if you take the word Rome, which is, of course, the seat of the Catholic Church, if you take the word Rome and you drop what is called the accessory vowel at the end, R-O-M-E, the E is what is called an accessory vowel. If you drop it in transliteration, just drop it, it becomes R-O-M. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we read and write contrary to tradition. we read and write from left to right, with a majority of traditional languages that we have been associated with anciently have been expressed from right to left. So why would they create a language that is in opposition to tradition? Because that's how they code. Because they program you to read from left to right, and then they code from right to left, and you're not programmed to read in both directions. Now, why am I saying that? Because R-O-M-E, dropping the accessory vowel, becomes R-O-M, and what is R-O-M in reverse? More.
Yeah, more.
It's more.
More.
So they fully understand that history, and they fully understand the meaning of the word "it's us." It's us today. Now, many of our ancestors understood it, and they have attempted to put it out there in various ways for us, hopefully, to grasp onto it. Let's take an example. I always like to use this example. We know that the first Constitution, called the Articles of Confederation, the new Constitution was the one where this administrative government was set up with George Washington and being appointed or being stewarded into that position by what's the brother out of Baltimore? What's his name? What's the brother? I'll think of Hanson, John Hanson. Pardon me for that lapse. John Hanson being one of the first 13 presidents of the United States in Congress assembled. That's how it was termed at that time, because Congress was all under everything, the legislative and the judicial and everything was under the president at that time. Now you have three separate branches. So it was the president of the United States in Congress assembled. John Hanson was the mentor of George Washington who helped push him forward. That was the new Constitution. The administrative government was established. The corporate entity was established. The federal state was established. But the Constitution prior to that was the Articles of Confederation. Now, there's a couple of things very important about the Articles of Confederation with respect to how they have coded the word cat. I want you to take, and this is a process that is used by them all the time that I have come to understand, which is called notarikon, N-O-T. For those of you who are writing, N-O-T, A-R-K-O-N, K-R-I-K-O-N, N-O-T-A-R-I-K-O-N, notarikon. And notarikon is a system of acronyms. So when you see them express acronyms like FBI, CIA, and all those other acronyms that are out there, that is a system. That's a coded system that they're using. It's just not randomly or haphazardly put together. They're trying to and are expressing something coded by the utilization of those acronyms. So when you take the acronyms for the, which is T, Articles, which is A, Confederation, which is C. Y'all with me? I just like to ask sometimes, because I know sometimes I'm moving fast with these words. I just want to make certain everybody on the same page.
Can you go over that again, please?
Okay. The first Constitution was the Articles of Confederation. I suggest you write that down. The Articles of Confederation. You got a capital T for your the. You got a capital A for Articles. And you got a capital C for Confederation. Y'all with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's take the acronyms for the Articles Confederation, which is TAC. Am I correct?
Yes.
Right. Read that from right to left.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, why did they do that? Two reasons, I believe. Number one, to encode it for future prosperity. For those in the future who would come and seek out their identity and be able to tie it all in by the utilization of this process. The other reason is that many of those framers at that time, the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution, as many of you know, were authored by folks who were who were so-called half-breeds. They were Europeans and they were half so-called Native Americans. And many of them were from the so-called Cherokee language. Now, the reason I say so-called is because you got to understand, a lot of these names for many of our Native American tribes were imposed upon those people. They were not names that they embraced. The Cherokee did not call themselves Cherokee. The Cherokee, interestingly enough, called themselves Kituwa. Kituwa. Now, Kitu in Arabic means cat. Kituwa means cat. Even the WASHITAW never called themselves WASHITAW. They called themselves Kitty, Kittish. And you can, it's K-I-T-I or K-I-T-T-I, K-I-T-T-I-S-H. Kitty, Kittish. All of those are the word cat. Now, where did this all come from? Where did this all stem from? What's the origin of this? If, in fact, I'm saying that from the beginning, that the first human individual was a Moor, therefore he was a cat head. Now, and I ask Christians this all the time, and maybe I'll ask it like this and just get a quick response. How many of you all believe? And I say that because none of us were there. So it's belief, and I respect belief. Doesn't mean that it does not. It's not worthy of respect, but it's not knowing. Knowing and belief are two different things. How many of you believe that the reptilian, the serpent, played a role in the manipulation of that circumstance in the so-called garden?
I ain't never about it.
Islam.
Islam.
Yes, I truly believe. I don't have the details, but from what I've been reading lately and learning, yes, I think there was a connection. No, think there was a connection.
There was a connection.
Reptile.
Yes, it was.
Islam.
Well, the dinosaurs were reptilians. That suffix ending of the word dino, D-I-N-O, dino, saur, S-A-U-R, dinosaur. Saur means lizard. Dino means judgment in the ancient Hebrew language. D-I-N-O means judgment. When judgment was imposed upon the serpent, upon the reptilian, upon the lizard on this planet. Now, if you believe that the reptilian played a role in that manipulation in the garden, then you have to accept that the polar opposite of the reptilian also was present in the garden as well. You couldn't have one without the other. There is no such thing as left without right. There wouldn't be no left if it wasn't right. There's no such thing as up without down. Look at your physical creation. You were created with the law of duality interwoven in your creation. You have two eyes, two nostrils, two lips, two arms, two set of hands, two set of feet. You are the perfect example of the law of duality. You are the physical embodiment of that universal law present within the embodiment of you. The double helix, for example, the representation of your DNA, the double helix, the law of duality there. So if you accept that the reptilian, the lizard, played a role in the manipulation, then by nature of the law of duality, you have to accept that the polar opposite was present as well, along with that reptilian. So, who and what was the polar opposite of the serpent in the garden? Well, the polar opposite of the serpent is the feline. Now, one of the things that you all who go online and do your research, just put in the night, just Google or Yahoo, the night of the great battle. And what will come up is a reference in Wallace book. Okay. I just got a recording telling me my line had been muted. I didn't push a button. Are you all still there?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I just want to make certain. I just heard the recording say that that I was muted. Okay. So, where was I? Okay, the reptilian.
Night of the Great Battle was the last thing.
Exactly. If you reference that in Google or Yahoo, you will come up with a portion of Wallace Budge's book called the so-called Book of the Dead, where it discusses the night of the great battle when the so-called sun god Ra took the form of a cat who was called Mao and defeated the serpent, cut his head off in the night of the great battle.
Yeah.
Okay? So if you get a chance to review that, then you'll get some further insight into where we're going here with respect to the polar opposite of the reptilian being the feline. Yeah. So if the feline is the polar opposite of the reptilian, then who was the feline in the creation scenario? It was Adam. Now, how do I know that? Or how have I come to believe that? Have any of you all ever seen Adam's name expressed as a first and last name, Adam or Adamu, A-D-A-M-U, and the last name, Cadmon, K-A-D-M-O-N? Any of you all familiar with that word, K-A-D-M-O-N?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, and this is why an etymological dictionary is important. What they do often, brothers and sisters, is that they will supplement or interchange letters for other letters. And there's a base principle that affords one to be able to do that. And that base principle is based upon numerology. Here we go. K-A-D-M-O-N. All right? Now, the letter D in the English language is the fourth letter of the alphabet. Am I correct?
Right.
A, B, C, D. So it vibrates off the numerological number 4. The letter T in the Hebrew language is 400. Now, I can supplement a letter for another letter as long as the letter that I'm placing in the place of the letter I'm taking out is of the same numerical value. Let me say that again.
Yeah.
I can supplement a letter for another letter as long as the letter that I'm supplementing is of the same numerical value as the one I'm taking away. Why is that important? Because ultimately words are emanations. They're vibratory. And they're not vibratory because of the letters. They're vibratory because of the numerology assigned to it. Because the universal language is mathematics.
Right.
A is A on Earth in the English language, but A may not be A on Mars. But one on Earth is 1, and 1 on Earth is 1 on Mars. So as long as I supplement a letter for another letter, and this is what they do, that letter that I put in has to be the same numerical value. Now, D's vibrate off the number 4, and T vibrates off the number 4. Now, here's how it's tricky. You got to research and understand the numerological number system not only for English, but for other languages to fully understand. Because in English, the T is I think the 18th letter. The 20th, excuse me. The 20th letter. And so, of course, the 20 is not consistent with the 4 that is associated with the D in English. But the T is. In Hebrew, it is 400. So in other words, I can place a T in the place of the D. Cadmon is Catman. K-A-D-M-O-N is synonymous to K-A-T-M-A-N. Now, here's how you can verify it. And I've heard various synonyms for this word being used, and they're okay. They're fine. I choose to use another one. I've heard indigenous. I've heard aboriginal. And all of those words are fine. But there's a synonym that dovetails directly to a verification of my claim. And this word is autochthonous, which is spelled AUTOCHTNOUS. Autochthonous. Now, AUTOCHTON is the noun. Autochthon. That's the noun. Now, autochthonous or autochthon means sprung from the earth or from the land itself. Sprung from the land itself. Now, let's take that definition, sprung from the land itself. Auto, which is the prefix, autochthonous, auto, A-U-T-O. Auto means self, like an automobile, means self-mobile. You can, create your own mobility by getting in an automobile and driving, self-mobile. So auto means self. Now, that's the prefix. Now, I want you to look at the suffix. The suffix is spelled, or the noun. Let me get that spelling for that noun again. AUTOCHTON. Autochthon. Okay. Now, the prefix auto means self. Now, here's the suffix. CHT. Now, to get a full understanding of it, you've got to place between the CH and the T, you've got to place a vowel in between those two consonants. And the vowel that you would place there is A. CHAT. See, normally consonants are separated by vowels. In this case, they didn't. They just kept the CHT. Well, CHAT is the way you spell cat in the French language. Okay. Now, so in the garden, you have Adam being the counterbalance to the reptilian. So the coming forth of man was such that he would not survive as long as the dinosaur and the reptilian were here. And from my research, that didn't happen by a natural circumstance. That I don't know how many of you all are familiar with the work Riley Martin. Any of you brothers and sisters familiar with Riley Martin?
No.
Nobody is? Okay. Riley Martin has written a book called The Coming of Tan. You all may want to get this book. I became very frustrated over the years. Someone brought this subject up with respect to UFO research. And I became frustrated over years because I didn't see many of us who had those encounters. I saw Europeans in Iowa and folks in Kansas and all over, primarily being Europeans. I started to wonder whether or not the so-called aliens don't like us either. They don't want to abduct us. Everyone that was abducted was a European. So I came across Riley Martin. And Riley's a brother who hails from the Mississippi area. And he wrote this book called The Coming of Tan. And The Coming of Tan is based upon his experience as an abductee, not just on one occasion, but on several occasions, starting at the age of 7 years old. And every 11 years, they would come back and get him. And Riley was taken, for those of you who are unfamiliar, I would certainly look into Riley's work. Riley was taken to a mothership that hovers between Saturn and one of Saturn's moons. This ship is about, according to Riley, is about 28 miles in diameter. And there, aboard this mothership, there was an amalgamation of at least 7 or 8 separate extraterrestrial species that he interacted with. And so in this book, The Coming of Tan, which I again recommend, if you can, I would recommend that you try to get your hands on this piece. As a matter of fact, Riley has his own show on the Sirius Network. Originally, he was with Howard Stern. They grabbed him up and had him as a feature speaker on his show. And Riley's well represented on the net. So if you search the net and do research there, you'll find his work. But in his book, he explains that he was told, according to those entities, that now let me just quickly say this about Riley. Riley only had an 8th grade education. Okay, Riley only had an 8th grade education, but when you read this book, you'll see that this man's awareness level is way beyond an 8th grade individual's awareness level. But this happened because they put a computer headset on him and downloaded a lot of information with respect to the creation of the universe, the relationship between man and the universe, all that good stuff, as well as they downloaded 144,000 images that Riley draws himself. And he draws these images based upon his recollections from this downloading into what he calls his neuro syntax. And so he is in the process of drawing these 144,000 images. These images contain symbols that we're pretty much familiar with. A lot of circles, a lot of pyramids, ankhs in the images. But I just want to say this, that Riley, once he starts drawing an image, he never messes up and has to ball the paper up and throw it away. He is able to complete every one that he starts. They're multicolor. I mean, they're beautiful images. On his website, you'll be able to see them. But Riley, I'm saying all that to give some background stuff on Riley. But Riley, and I've taken him around the various cities and to give presentations, and I know him personally. And he says in his book that he was told by these entities that the dinosaur was purposely destroyed. Purposely. Not by a natural disaster. Because there's no way this man would be able to survive without the elimination of the lizard, of the reptilian. And so, how much time do I have? Because I better ask that first.
Maybe 10 minutes more.
Okay, great. Thank you, sister. Since we're on celestial stuff, so you have a great understanding that this really goes beyond the terrestrial plane. I heard the discussion come up a little earlier with respect to Mars. Okay. Now, I want to share something with you that may be striking to some of you. But the word Mars, of course, is the New English expression. But the word Mars was not spelled M-A-R-S in the Latin language. In the Latin language, the word Mars was spelled M-A-V, as in Victor, M-A-V-O-R-S. Now, V's and U's and W's, and keeping in mind a W is exactly what it says. It's a double U. You're just doubling a U, W. And so V's, W's, and U's are all interchangeable letters. So M-A-V-O-R-S is synonymous, and also M-A-U-O-R-S or M-A-U-R-S. Originally, the word Mars is Moors. Now, why is that important in terms of verifying my claim? How many of y'all are familiar with the so-called face on Mars that was found back in 1976? Well, yeah. Some of y'all familiar with that, the face on Mars?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I've met with the writer of a book called Monuments of Mars, The City on the Edge of Forever. That's an important book to get. The Monuments on Mars, The City on the Edge of Forever, written by Richard Hoagland, Hoagland. And I met with Richard some years ago and had a conversation with him. But if you go to what is called Enterprise Mission, that's his website, enterprisemission.com. Enterprisemission.com. On that site, you'll be able to verify for yourself that what they did was they took the face on Mars. Now, for those of you who don't know about the face on Mars, Mars is an artifact the face on Mars is an artifact that was found that's 1,500 feet high, from the ground to the tip of the nose. 1,500 feet, just to get some perspective, the monument in Washington, D.C. is 555 feet high. So you take the monument in Washington, D.C., 555 feet, put it on top of itself 3 times, and you get an idea how big this particular artifact is on Mars. Perfect symmetry, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, a headdress. NASA attempted to disclaim it, saying it was a trick of light and shadows, but the symmetry is such that it does not bear witness to some. Nature does not create a straight line on a macro level. In other words, you don't see straight lines when you look down on the earth from up high. Because of the curvature of the earth, the lines curve. And so there are some aspects to the face that defy natural law. That, in other words, this was intelligently done not by nature, but by intelligent beings. This was created. Now, what they did was they took half of the face, took one half of the face, took that one half, for example, first off, took that one half, reversed it, and connected back to that half. Okay, then took the other side, reversed it, and connected to that other side. And once they did that, they found out that the face on Mars is half human and half feline. That makes sense. If Mars is Moors, and if my claim is that the word Moor means cat head, then why wouldn't there be something on Mars that would be indicative of that title and of that definition? It is a cat head. The Sphinx on Earth, we can come back to Earth. The Sphinx on Earth is a feline body with a male head.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Right? Okay. What was the name of Cairo before it became Cairo? Cairo was called El Kahira, Kahira, El Kahira, which means the Mars. Before it became Cairo, it was called Mars. What was the ancient name of China, for example? I'm just trying to move quickly because I know I got 10 minutes here. The ancient name of China. The ancient name of China was Cathay. Cathay. And then it became China. As a matter of fact, the Chinese delegation was so impressed with the Empress when she made her initial presentation, I think in 1993, in Geneva. They were very impressed with her, and they were impressed with her primarily because she was able to link her lineage back to the ancient land of Mu, which is spelled, popularly is called Lemuria, 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 but also Mu, Mu. Now, that's the base of the Egyptian word Mau. So Mu meant cat. Now, here's how it is graduated to further verify my claim from a civilization standpoint. Let's move forward from Mu. The next civilization was Atlantis. Am I correct?
Uh-huh.
Okay, Atlantis. And this is how they code. I found this out by studying the works of Gerald Massey and his 2-volume piece called The Book of the Beginnings. The Book of the Beginnings. In the Kemetic language, brothers and sisters, in the Kemetic language, whenever there was a word that began with AT, whenever there was a word that began with AT, the K was implied. It's not there, but it's implied. Okay? For example, well, let me stay on this point. Now, the reason that's important is because when you take the word Atlantis or Atlanta, the AT out in front is absent K, which is implied as the prefix. Cat, then LAN, land. Just to carry these civilizations forward, to show a steady line of progression of how our identity with respect to being Moors, with respect to being catheads, has moved forth from civilization to civilization. So the AT is implied. So all those words that been brought to us in English, Athena, Athens, Atlas, all of those words that begin in AT, the K is implied, which is not there. Next civilization, the so-called Sumerians, or the so-called Phoenicians. Now, the problem is, in terms of research, that we sometimes adopt words or identify places and things and such with words that are not words that are English words, but that are words that are Greek terms. Phoenicia is a Greek term. Pyramid is a Greek term. Egypt is a Greek term. None of those terms are terms that were actually used. They're terms that have been imposed upon, again, just like Africa. And sometimes this causes problems with folks. Folks have difficulty with this. A tradition of the Roman conquest is always to take the name of the general who led the conquest and impose that general's name on those people or on that land mass. And Scipio Africanus was a Roman general. And they took his last name, Africanus, and applied it to that continent, Africa. De la Ware, a French general named De la Ware, was a general who defeated the so-called Delaware Native Americans. They didn't call themselves Delaware. They called themselves Lenni Lenape. So these terms we got to be careful of. So what am I referencing here? To move gradually forward with civilizations, the so-called Sumerians, the so-called Phoenicians, they call themselves Khattis, spelled Khatti. Now I want to give you a book that you can pull up. The author is given authorization to download the entire book for free. Wow. For free. Let me give you this author's name. His name is, if you put into Yahoo or Google, just put in Waddell, Waddell. Put in that name, Waddell. And then put in Phoenician, Phoenician. Put in Phoenician, origin, that word in next, origin, Britons, Britons, Britons. Then put the word Scots, not with two T's, one T, Scots. So the title of the book is The Phoenician Origin of Britons, Scots, and Anglo-Saxons, discovered by Phoenician and Sumerian inscriptions in Britain by pre-Roman Britain coins and a mass of new history. Okay, now, L.A. Waddell was a fellow of the Royal Anthropological Institute of Folklore Society's honorary correspondent, Indian Archaeological Survey. He was an ex-professor of Tibetan at London University, so he was the Queen's boy on this subject. Now, this book has some racial overtones that are racist. However, in between all that stuff, there's some valuable stuff that we can pick out of there. Phoenician Origins of Britons and Scots. Now, you can pull up the entire book. And there is a map at the end of the book. There is a map of place names in Phoenician colonies. Now, the Phoenicians did not, again, call themselves Phoenicians. They called themselves Khattis, K-H-A-T-T-I. And another word that stems from this, another word that stems from K-H-A-T-T-I is H-I-T-T-I-T-E. I know y'all heard that word before. H-I-T-T-I-T-E. Hittite.
Yeah.
Right? What has happened, sister, is that, and this has primarily happened by linguists, many of them so-called Jewish linguists who are trying to hide this information with respect to the cat, they have dropped the K.
Okay.
So Hittite is Kittite. That's why all this dovetails with the so-called Washitaw. Keeping in mind, the Washitaw called themselves Kitty. And if they're the oldest indigenous people on the planet, then that further verifies my claim.
Right.
That the word Moor means cat head.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in closing, let me simply say this. To tie this in, I know I've covered quite a bit very quickly, is that those framers of the Constitution, many of them were so-called half-breeds, many of them from the Kituwa Native American people, that Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison came up with this scheme, and they went and studied among the Iroquois Confederacy. They didn't know anything about federalized states, independent states. All they knew was about monarchs. So they went amongst the Iroquois Confederacy and studied their great law of peace. Many of y'all already know this stuff. Many of y'all heard this before. And based on that, they essentially used the great law of peace as a template or a blueprint by which to create the Constitution. Okay? Now, in the Constitution, the first one, where it says, the preamble, we the people, with a capital P, which makes it distinguishable from a small p. See, most Europeans think that the people in we the people is them, the masses. It had nothing to do with them. That's why many folks who try to go into court and try to invoke the Constitution as a defense is cut off by the judge. Why? Because you cannot invoke a contract that you were not a party to.
Exactly.
And so those we were referring to those individuals who were, many of them was Freemasons, many of them were of bloodlines that were sent over here, the so-called Holy Grail bloodlines that were sent over here early on by the Queen, by the King of England, King George III, who was Moorish himself. Him and his wife, Charlotte, they both were Moors. They both were of color. Queen Charlotte's picture you can see in J.A. Rogers' work, very distinguished. You can also pull it up online. But what happened was these family lines intermarried with Native American women. Mm-hmm. And so many of those framers were part Kituwa, Cherokee, and part so-called European. As a matter of fact, this is how the word citizen was created. This is very important. You see the word citizen spelled C-I-T-I-Z-E-N. C-I-T-I-Z-E-N. They had to create a term for this new being that was being created, meaning most of the early frontiersmen came with no women. But then you see offspring pop up. Well, obviously they were amalgamating with Native American women and having offspring. This offspring had to have a legal identity. So they created the term citizen. This is what they did. A person who's not indigenous to the land is called a denizen. D-E-N-I-Z-E-N. A denizen is not indigenous to the land. He is an inhabitant of the land. And so what they did was they took the suffix ending of denizen, which is I-Z-E-N, and that represented the part of that person who was European because he was not indigenous to the land, and assigned it or connected I-Z-E-N to C-I-T, which represented the Native American people, Sit, or Cat, or Kit. When the Jesuits came to America and went to the northern part of Pennsylvania, when they kept journals, as they normally did amongst, their little exploits, the Jesuits would maintain records. When they went amongst the Erie mound builders from the Erie, Pennsylvania region, when they went amongst them in their journals, they referred to them as the Cat Nation. So all of this and more is further verification of the claim of understanding the meaning of the word that we all identify with. It's important, yes, to understand that we're Moors, but again, that's a claim that you make that you have to verify, brothers and sisters. And so when the verification process is attempted based upon language, you're going to get to a point where you're not going to see any spelling that is represented in any form of the varying spellings of the word Moor that we know exists presently. But once you come to understand what it means, then by meaning, for example, another quick example, what was the name before the conquistadors, the Spanish came over from Spain with so-called Columbus's exploits? What did the landmass of El Salvador, because they placed that name on El Salvador, which means the Savior. What was that landmass called before? It was called El Salvador. One word. I'll spell it out very quickly for you. That land was called C-A-T. Excuse me. That land was spelled, expressed, K-U-S-C-A-T-L-A-N. K-U-S or C-U-S, either way. The K and the C are convertible letters. C-U-S or K-U-S, C-A-T-L-A-N, Kush Cat Land. Now, what they have done is they have taken three words, condensed them into one, and give us a single word expression. We have to break it down as three components. Kush Cat Land, over here, this side of the world. See, there were Moors in the east and Moors in the west. We were not restricted to Mauritania, Northwest Africa, Spain, Portugal, southern France, England. We were not restricted to that land. We were everywhere. So when they got here, we were already here. As a matter of fact, the Phoenicians came here first and set up over here first and then set up Egypt. The first three pre-dynastic kings of Egypt were Phoenicians, were Catis. But they set up, that's why the pyramids over here are older than the ones in the Giza Plateau, because the Phoenicians came here and set up shop first. Let me give out my information. I think I've talked long enough. I want to thank you all for being patient once I get started. And there's much more information, perhaps at some further date in the future. I'll be certainly willing to come back and kind of expand on this. But I just wanted to give you all just a kind of a gist of the importance of understanding, yes, that we are Moors, but it's doubly important for us to know what it means. Because, again, this preamble that I was on with respect to the Constitution, we, the people, in order to form a more perfect union. Now, you tell me whether or not perfection can be expanded upon. Can it?
No.
Anybody? Anybody think that the perfection can be expanded upon? If it can be expanded upon, then it's not perfect.
I was going to say perfect is perfect.
Perfect is perfect, sister. You're absolutely correct. So they didn't mean we the people in order to form a more perfect union, meaning we're going to expand on perfection. They were saying that we're going to build on the foundation that the Moors had already established over here with a federal union of states, the Iroquois Confederacy. More perfect. Now, who were the we? This is who the we were, and I'll end it with this. The word for cat in the so-called Cherokee or Kituwa language is spelled W-E-S-A. The word for cat in the Cherokee or Kituwa language is spelled W-E-S-A. Now, let's expose something right here. W is exactly what I said earlier. It's a W, correct?
Right.
Okay. So WESA is synonymous to UESA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Everybody with me? This is very important. This is very important. This is the last comment, which is going to add to further verifying my claim. UESA. Now, let's transliterate UESA by dropping your vowel point E. And what are you left with? Just drop your vowel point E. UESA. Drop your vowel point E. What are you left with? USA. United States of America. Is a coded word for cat. And the we were those individuals who were half Native American, half Moors, and half Europeans, and they were creating a contract for their prosperity, not the masses. Not the masses.
Yeah.
So there's some other things that, for example, just very quickly, the Greek word for cat is galley, G-A-L-E or G-A-L-I. This is why the European refers to this woman as a gal. G-A-L-I or G-A-L-E, galley. And so the ancient name for France and Germany, before it became two individual countries, it was one landmass called Gaul, G-A-U-L. You got a place called Galilee. All those words are in other languages words that mean cat. So when the Roman Catholic Church took the word for themselves and adopted the word more in terms of the place name in code, perhaps now you're getting a great understanding of why. And it wasn't because, again, this is something that was culturally, though it became a cultural identification, but this is something that started from the beginning, because what I have been able to, and again, this is a position that I've come to, is that, let me put it this way. The Elohim, in the beginning, the Elohim created the heavens and the earth. The word God is a mistranslation from the word Elohim. The word God, G-O-D. And it's the reason it's a mistranslation is because God, G-O-D, is masculine singular only. G-O-D is masculine singular only. The word that was in the Aramaic text was Elohim, which is masculine singular and plural. So in other words, they created a masculine singular word from a masculine feminine plural word. Does that make sense? No, it makes no sense. It's a mistranslation. So these Elohim, in the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and earth. Who are they? And if we were created in their image, that means they have to have an image. How can you be created in the image of something that has no image? Now, our distinctive quality is that the breath, the spirit of the creator of all things was breathed into us, and our capability of discernment. But if we were created in the image of something, that means that we were created in the image of had to have an image. Mm-hmm. Feline. That's why the Christians waiting for the lion of the tribe of Judah to return. Not waiting for the porpoise or the turtle or the pig or porcupine, waiting for the lion of the tribe of Judah. When John was taken up in the book of Revelations and saw one sitting on the throne, holding a book sealed with 7 seals. And the question was asked, who was worthy to open the book and to loose the 7 seals? And no one was found worthy. In the earth, above the earth, under the earth, And so John started to weep. And the angel cried out, "Weep not, John. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah prevaileth." That's just not picked out at random.
Hey,
Islam,
brother.
Islam.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off, but you got a series of questions, and if you give us some time for questions, but I would love to invite you back. I'm not trying to cut you off, but I know there's some people been waiting for an hour to ask you a question, and it's like getting close to the 9:30 hour, so we got 15 minutes.
All right, I understand, brother. Pardon me for, you've been in my classes. You know how I get. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You know what? You make the old days. I'm telling you, man. I was telling some of my friends about how a week after Di was murdered, you discerned it and put it out there. So I would love to have you back at some point. But I want to be able to get them some questions, and then I know Goddess Lyrana has some stuff that she wanted to contribute.
All right, great.
I apologize for cutting you off.
No. I apologize for going so long. But this is so important and so intertwined and interwoven.
Great. It was truly great. I got goosebumps. I remember the days. But anyway, we're going to start with, I guess, do you want to give your pertinent information first? Go ahead and give some of your information. Then we'll start with Brother Rayum after you finish.
For those who want to reach out by email, you can. It's one word, ROOM, ROOM, for more, MOOR, ROOM, FOR, ROOM 4, FOR, more, MOOR, at yahoo.com. That's the email address. That's probably the best way to reach out to me.